Hello. Hi.
Hello. Are you listening?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Marta Palmeira, and I welcome you to the Talks, Conservation Talks during quarantine times. I am part of 2021, a 12-year-old company from Portugal, and most of you know us because of our international master classes. Thanks for everyone for being with us. Thanks to our friends, and especially thanks to Virginia that accepted our invitation to be our second guest. We have been chasing Virginia for the last 4 years because we wanted her to teach us on modern metals in Portugal in one of our master classes, but she couldn't come because she was really busy writing this book on modern metals for Getty. Now we are here finally, and we will discuss a little about it while this pandemic situation doesn't end. So welcome, Virginia, welcome you all. Can you introduce yourself a little, please?
Thank you very much, Marta. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes. Need the microphone. Okay, I will introduce briefly myself and my work. I'm a metallurgical engineer, specialized in corrosion and protection of metals. I have a PhD in material science.
It's never better.
Sorry, Virginia. I just want everyone to turn off their microphones, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Now it's better.
And okay, my professional life then is divided in two major stages. The first one took more or less 20 years. I worked as professor in university in South Brazil and as consultant for industries. And amazingly, the second stage come from the internet. I was doing a PhD, postdoc in France, and doing a course on bookbinding. And the professor was also a restorer of books. And then I interested me for restoration, and I discovered there is metals restoration. And I attended a meeting, ICOMCC meeting in South France. It was in '98. Since then, for more 20 years, I did more or less the same thing. That means classes and consultancy, but this time in the area of conservation of cultural heritage. I lectured for 12 years in Institut National du Patrimoine in France and gave lots of workshops and also consultancy with many different artifacts, piano wires, saxophones, sculptures, and a very nice work evaluating with electrochemical techniques, evaluating climate, museums and showcase climate. And then my activity really concretely was, I had two fronts. One was characterization of metallic materials. And I like very much this word characterization. I think it defines well what is sought in conservation. It's a mix of identification, not only which alloy, but also how the artifact has been made, and also evaluation of the state of conservation. And the second front, it was a systematic evaluation of treatment methods. I did a lot with the students in INP to evaluate really systematically treatments proposed in the literature, but not really validate. Within this time, this 20 years, I realized that metals were placed in black box, labeled iron, copper, silver, and the treatments were made following these labels, independently of a real and detailed regard to the material. If iron, it is stainless steel, it is cast iron, it is weathering steel, and so on. And then all these different types of the same alloy were treated in the same way. I think it is a heritage from the the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Lenderlitz's book shows really, if you have this, then you do this. If this, then this. And I don't agree with this. I think we have to, we need a complete knowledge of materials and techniques used for their elaboration. It is fundamental for us assessing its conservation condition and making appropriate decisions about intervention. If you see, for example, a rusted iron, you can think, it is rusted, you have to stabilize or to clean this rust. But if it is a weathering seal, you have to know the sick person, the patient.
You are already answering to a lot of questions, so so we have time to do it. So I know that you work both in Brazil and in France. Now you are in Brazil.
Yes, it was. I am currently living most of the time in Brazil. My husband is living in France. Then I used to go 3 times per year. But the last work or big work I did, it was with the Museum of Contemporary Art in São Paulo. It was a really nice project. We spent 1 year with the staff of the museum. We're looking for 60 sculptures, but really carefully examining them, analyzing, and so on.
But your work with them is are you a consultant of the conservators? Yes.
Yes, I'm working now only as the consultant in different places when the work is.
And normally, do you support the conservators, giving them your knowledge about the materials, helping them making the decisions for the treatments, or normally you give them advice not to touch the artworks?
I think the question is more large than this. I try to do this advice. But normally, my experience is that people want a recipe or an answer. They don't want to learn, to spend their time to understand, and by themselves go further. Okay. This is, I think, it is the way.
Yeah, it's true, and I'm a conservator. I can defend ourselves, because sometimes we don't have the time to make those studies. So it's normally more useful for us if people like Virginia that already studied it, that you can help us with those recipes, for example.
Yes, no, of course, but I don't mean not help. I mean to think with me, discuss with me, and not that I cannot give a recipe.
Of course, of course. What are the main challenges for the conservation of modern metals when compared to the historical ones? And what should we as conservators keep in mind?
I don't think they are more complex or difficult modern metals. I think ancient metals were also, because they have been made very empirically and artisanally and so on, but people didn't pay attention to this. And now we have, for example, aluminum. That is a whole family of hundreds of or thousands of alloys, types of alloys, from cans, beverage to aircrafts. And it is impossible to know exactly which alloy you are handling, but you have to approach the better you can.
So the biggest challenge for the modern metals is to know what are there, what are you looking at?
Yes, yes. Because depending on what you, there are many questions also about should I apply a coating or not.
Yeah.
Some alloys, some passive, what we call active passive alloys like stainless steel and aluminum should not normally be coated. They by themselves, they develop this protective coat layer, very thin layer. Then you have to know if it is this alloy to treat.
Okay, so I will ask you some questions that participants asked me by email, and depending on our conversation. So often for the restoration of modern metals, it implies a knowledge of materials engineer and metallurgy, which develops very rapidly, and it's hard to follow. There are already lots of papers about aluminium and quartz and steel, but very few on titanium, platinum, and other metallic coatings. In your book, do you refer this? If not, where should we find more documentation about this? And what about formation and metal conservation? Is there anyone that you recommend? This was two questions in one.
Yes. Concerning the literature, yes, there are some. There was a meeting in Washington some years ago about aluminum, just about aluminum, and there are many publications about weathering steel. But I intended at the beginning to use some case studies to include in the book, but it was not possible when I look really these papers. They were not complete. They didn't characterize well the materials, for example. How could I reproduce something that is not, they did a treatment. It's interesting, as I think it is worth it to read and to publish this for the community, but you have to be careful, even with the literature that exists. The rest, as the questions cites, titanium, platinum, other metallic coatings, we have really almost nothing. And I tried to approach to put these alloys and these coatings in the book. About coatings, there is a part, the book has 3 parts. The third part is only about coatings, inorganic coatings. That means metallic, nickel and chromium alloy coatings, and anodizing and phosphating. Then they are in the book. Regarding the formation in metal conservation, in my opinion, there is a lack of material science. I know a lot of schools around the world. I visited already, and I know people working in these schools, and they have what they call science, but what they call science is chemistry, chemical reactions and so on. But material science, there is really a lack of, I think not only for metals, but for other materials, for wood, textiles, and so on.
But why do you think that happened? It's because metals are really diverse. It's really difficult to approach all of them.
No, I don't think so. I did more or less this in Instituto Nacional de Patrimônio during these 12 years. It was okay. It was.
So you can recommend that school?
Yes, I recommend that people engage engineers, material science engineers, and so on. People more use it to work with materials, you know, and not just with research, paper publishing, but solving concrete problems.
Okay. So considering that most of private practice doesn't have access to methods of examination and analysis, and most of the time it's really hard to determine the composition of the alloys, what can we do to identify them? And when, in your opinion, the use of XRF, it's really necessary?
Yes, I know it is difficult to know for sure which alloy it is, but you can apply common sense. You have to, and I think it is the conservator that should, that's the most important people in this in this characterization, because he will examine very detailed and evaluate and think about possibilities for the alloy, because you can see if it is an object, an art object, for example, or a souvenir. It has been made in hundreds or thousands of, it is not an expensive alloy. It is an alloy that could be easily cast, not a higher temperature, melting temperature. Then you arrive to zinc alloys, for example. They fulfill these requirements to be used in this type of objects. And then there are other possibilities to approach the problem, and at the end ask for some analysis if it is necessary. And even analysis, I will try to, I don't know if I can share my screen.
You can try.
Concerning XRF analysis.
We are not seeing anything.
No?
No.
I'm trying to. Are you seeing? No?
No.
It's just your computer. I cannot.
But maybe later you can send me, and I can send by email to all the participants, for example.
Yeah, it's showing where you are, where I am here. Things like this. This is more or less. There are more other alloys. This and this. They look likely, but here you have stainless steel. That means you have iron, nickel, and chromium inside the alloy. And here you have steel covered with nickel and chromium. You have the same elements, but distributed differently. And you cannot clean this in the same way you clean this.
Okay.
Because you can damage the coating. Here is a coating. If you do XRF analysis, you will have the same elements, iron, nickel, and chromium.
Okay.
And you have, because of this, I insist, you have to look, to examine first very carefully. Of course, XRF is very useful if you don't know if it is aluminum or stainless steel. It's wonderful to have an XRF.
But in your opinion, the places where you have worked, it's common use or not?
More and more, like when I know conservators, they are buying used or XRF, or there are so often people in the university or research institutions that help conservators, independent conservators.
Okay. And another question is, metal coatings are common and can have many functions. Based on your experience, are these solutions good for the artworks in a long term, or they pose other challenges such as hiding degradation processes or making some limitations in the metal conservation?
No, they don't hide degradation progress. If they have been applied and the whole object like this degrade, then you see here holes, pitchings, and so on. But they really are very difficult. They have many challenges to conserve when it's needed. Many people take them out when they start peeling and apply again. I have a student in ENP that did his conclusion work on nickel chromium plating on it. It was a table from the 60s or 70s, a traditional French table. and coated, and she tried, it was just peeling small parts, and she tried different consolidants to glue them again. This is a work is in the library at TNP.
Okay.
If someone want to know.
So when we are not sure which alloys are present in an object or an artwork, do you consider it necessary to apply a corrosion stabilizer or just a protective barrier? Or should we apply a corrosion stabilizer that we know that works in another alloy, for example?
When you don't know which alloy, nothing should be applied, my opinion. You cannot apply a treatment to a person that you don't know which problem he has.
Okay.
I don't understand what is the meaning of corrosion stabilizer, but before applying, it's necessary to know the alloy.
Okay.
Anyway, as for barrier, there is another point, barrier protection. I think it should only be applied when the environment is very aggressive and you don't have you cannot adapt the environment really as a barrier, because otherwise it could be a huge problem in the future, because all the coatings degrade, and it will be a problem for the people in 10 or 20 years. And as I said before, some metallic alloys don't like to be coated, as aluminum, for example. There are many examples of aluminum artworks coated and put in a closed showcase and presenting a special form of corrosion called filiform corrosion. It develops under the coating and makes, then it's not a single thing.
But even for outdoor sculptures, you don't recommend coating?
Not by default. You have to, I like very much a paper, is older, 20 or more years. They applied coatings in a sculpture in Washington, D.C., I think, an outdoor sculpture. And they tried, just after applying, they test for solubility of, to take out this coating with solvents, and 10 years later.
Okay.
It's a big difference. You cannot solubilize anymore. Okay. They are hard to take, and the corrosion goes preferentially in the areas not coated, and there is all.
Of course.
If you coat, if you apply a coating, you have to examine more frequently to see if all is okay. Otherwise, it could be a bigger problem.
And what about maintenance of the coating? It's not a solution?
Sorry?
For example, a regular maintenance of the coating. It's not a solution?
Yes. There is another paper when I worked with silver many years. I like it very much, a paper, because all people, it was at the time at nitrocellulose was not liked. It just, it was only acrylic coatings for silver, not used. I forgot the name, the commercial names. But anyway, there was a paper from the VNA where the person describes, says they use nitrocellulose coatings because they know all inconvenients, but they use it for, I don't know how many years. They know how to apply, how to take out, how to renew, how long they need, 5, 10 years to reapply. And this is important. There's knowledge. It's not just use or not, which is the best one. All are okay. They were developed to protect, but you have to know your environment.
Okay. And about environmental, and because you are living in 2 different countries and 2 different continents, what are the main differences that you notice in the museum environmental, for example? The damages in the artworks are alike, or they are really associated to the climate itself?
It depends. It depends. Inside the museum, they are alike because there is air conditioning. There are the same from the same type. And the main factor, I would say that it would be this periodic examination, the politic of the museum to take care from the collection, from the objects. Otherwise, for outdoor, there is a museum in São Paulo for religious art. They expose their silver and all very beautiful and rich and valuable objects in an internal courtyard, in a very polluted area, and they had to apply a barrier protection, a coating, because otherwise, really.
Yeah, my question was more for the outdoor artworks, because in contemporary art you have a lot of big sculptures outside, and the climate in France is really different from the climate in Brazil, and my question was more or less about those different environmentals.
Now, when I think I worked in France, we had, when I worked in the LRMH, Laboratoire de Monuments Historiques, we had a corrosion station for samples, to expose samples on the roofing of Saint-Denis Cathedral. And I think I was very, very surprised to see the roofing is like this, one side north and another south. When you look from the exterior, they are both similar, but from very close, they were completely, the copper, the green, the texture was completely different. But here as well, on the contrary, here in South America, the south side is not has no sun. Mm-hmm. Then we have in curtain sculptures. We have in parks, we have the south or the dark side covered with green vegetables. You know, okay. They grow in this dark side.
Yeah. So I will ask some practical questions that have been questioned for you. For the treatments for removing corrosion products and metals by electrochemical and electrolytic methods are widely studied, but it's not common practice to use them. Do you know why? Is it because the Pleco pencil is not accessible for everyone, or because there are limitations in its use?
I remember, I don't remember in 2000 or 2001, I presented a paper called in Conservation Science Conference, Edinburgh, I think, called Electrochemistry as a Conservation Tool. And then I did a survey about what was used for what, for analysis, for treatment, consolidation, cleaning, dechlorination, and so on. And my conclusion today is that some groups, that there was not a lot of, or not widely studied. Some groups, there was a group in US, Hamilton, I think, a group in France, Valectra, EDF Valectra, together with Christian de Grigny, and these groups did some experiments, but they were never really validated in the sense as we look now for the vaccine for against COVID, validate in this sense. There are some papers. And then because of this, I think people feel not so comfortable to apply. But I don't think that we have to bind this to pleco use, because the pleco, it is a very complicated instrument, I think. You can do for silver cleaning. It's the most simple use of electrochemistry. It works very well if you have a stainless steel scissors with cotton, with electrolyte, battery. It's not because electrochemistry is expensive, but you have to know, to try, to have a minimum of practice to realize it.
And from your experience, the cleaning of metals is recommended or not? Generally, I'm not, from your experience, are you more conservative or you prefer more hands-on?
I think every case is different. If you take silver alloys, normally are cleaned. Copper alloys, no. Why?
Okay.
Why? It's just an aesthetical question.
Yeah.
We prefer like this or like this. And there are other, I worked for a reliquary in Belgium so many years ago, in Kika, IPA, and where the church, it was a big silver reliquary, 1 meter, and it was, it belongs to a church, and the people in the church, they wanted it shining, because the tradition was shine. Then we took electrolytically, we cleaned all this tarnishing. It was beautiful with tarnishing, but we transformed it in a very, I don't know, I don't like a lot, but it was a request from.
So you didn't agree with that intervention?
No, I think it's not a personal preference. My role is to explain that, for example, in this case of this silver, the tarnishing was not damaging or evoluting or active. Okay. And then the owner or council or I don't know, a team decide what they want. If they want to preserve the initial image because there is a cult object and the people wanted to go there and see something bright and beautiful, or no, it's, my role is to, and I think also conservators should do this, to explain to the owners, if you want this, it could happen this and this.
But then you have to explain also the disadvantages of doing that cleaning, because the material will be more fragile, no? More exposed?
Yes, every time you clean, you take, if the tarnish or the surface layer is stable, if you take it out, you are exposing again the metal.
Yeah.
Yes. Then you don't clean to make to put in storage. You will clean if you want to expose, for example. Yeah, it would be a good reason. I'm not against this.
Okay.
I think it's important to explain to people in charge of take these decisions, the pros and cons, and so that they could decide.
Okay, I have one question here in the chat room. Which meeting do you recommend to visit for metal conservators?
There is a long time that I'm not more attending meetings. I think ICOM CC Metal triennial meeting. I don't know where will be the following. It's the only one. There are some more smaller, but I'm not aware of this.
Okay, so one last question. It's a really specific one. Do you know if anyone has tested the efficiency of applying a mixture of methanol and xylamine nitrate as a stabilizer for iron alloys? Or do you know other components that doesn't stain like tannic acid?
No, I don't know this product, I think that the question should be better defined. What you mean, the question by ferrous alloy? It's cast iron, lots of carbon, steel, common steel, weathering steel, stainless steel, and then the panorama is completely different. The approach is completely different. And what do you intend to stabilize?
Okay.
It is corroding. Why? It's very accelerated. You need to stabilize or not? We need to really to know better the question.
Just one final question that they just wrote here. What are your thoughts on microcrystalline wax as a protective coating? Because it's really popular in Portugal and I think in Europe.
I think you have to test. It's okay. I did this for this museum in São Paulo from religious art. We tested microcrystalline wax, local, imported, different, I don't remember, 4 or 5 products. We applied in small coupons of silver and we exposed it in different areas of the museum to know which one would be, I would not say better, but we work well and we could remove without causing problem to the substrate.
Okay. So many thanks to you, Virginia. I think
just one thing I forgot at the beginning. The title of the talk, I don't know if you pay attention. It was Understanding Contemporary Methods for Conservation. It was not Conservation of Contemporary Methods, and it was mine. It was. I think it's really important to understand like a conservator, not like an engineer, but understand.
Of course. Thank you very much for your help and for answering all these questions. Thanks everyone. As we have done last week, if you want to turn on your videos so we can say goodbye to everyone in our faces, just to let you know that we have also, I think 47 participants from Portugal, Spain, France, UK, Brazil, USA, Poland, France. Thank you very much. We will have another talk next week. We'll have 2 talks, one on Tuesday in Spanish with Laura Fuster Lopez, and another one on Thursday in English with Will Shank. But I will send all the information to you. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much, Virginia. Take care of yourselves and see you next week. Many, many thanks. Bye.
Bye.